and welcome to Thursday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. Now let's start by just reminiscing slightly on yesterday's extraordinary video. Well, I say it was an extraordinary video. It was the longest solve that we've ever shown on the channel. Over 100 minutes of logic wrestling between me and Fistamafel. And what I understand, incredibly, it was the 50th time that Fistamafel has been showcased on Cracking the Cryptic. Given how many puzzles we receive, this is quite it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing that Fistamafel's done. Many of the Discord setters were in absolute awe of this total yesterday. So I think we should start just by thanking Fistamafel for being who he is and creating masterpiece after masterpiece. I don't know how many hours of entertainment he has provided me with, and hopefully some of you watching me with, but it's a lot. What a guy. Just incredible. Now, what have we got for you today? It's a hard act to follow, but one constructor who has been, well, I suspect he's closing the gap in terms of 50 versus the number of puzzles that Codec has had featured on the channel. Does Codec feature more often than Fistamafel? Maybe at the moment, I'm not sure. But anyway, this is Codec's latest puzzle. It's called Mathlements, and it has a perfect 100% rating on Logic Masters Germany. And it's basically an arrows puzzle, reading the rules, as that's what it seems to suggest. So do have a go at this one, and if you like it, we have several more of these in our Arrows app, which of course came out quite recently, so do check that out. Now, what else do I need to tell you about? Well, on Patreon we are going to be releasing the solution video to our Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy Sudoku hunt in the next day or two. So if you have been working on it, please do get your solution over to us as soon as you can, and we will continue to shout out the people who solve it correctly. Finally, I have some really rather cool news from our Discord server. There is a new channel on the Discord server called Daily Sudoku, and it's an absolute treat. Basically, the idea is that every single day, a new handcrafted puzzle will be published there, and these puzzles are by Clover, Sam Kappelman-Lyons and Philip Newman, so they're basically awesome, with the guarantee that the puzzle will be so-called genuinely approachable. It will be a genuinely approachable Sudoku, or a GAS. I think this is a brilliant idea, and I can tell you that I tried the odd-even Sudoku that they released yesterday. I think it was by Clover, and it was a lovely puzzle. I sneaked in a bit under 6 minutes, and then saw that Prasanna Seshadri had done it in 3 minutes. So that was a bit of a sobering occurrence. But anyway, I was very tired. I had to do the Fistamafel first, and I'm not used to the software, etc. Goodness me, I'd have been done in at least five and a half minutes if all of those things had gone well. Yeah, anyway, I definitely commend it to you. So if you've not looked on the Discord server, do have a look at it. You'll find a lot of fun there, and these daily Sudokus are, I think, a brilliant innovation. Now, let's get on with Mathlements. What did Codec say? He wrote, you have to defend the castle, get your sum guns and knowledge bombs, and man the Mathlements. So that is what we will try to do. The rules are as follows. Normal Sudoku rules apply. Digits along an arrow must sum to the digit in that arrow's circle. So that's normal arrow rules. This basically means this circle here is the sum of those 3 digits. Cells containing an opaque grey circle must contain an odd digit. Well, there is only one of those, and it's there. So I doubt this is where we start. We just know that this has to be an odd number. So anyway, do have a go. The way to play is to click the link under the video. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Actually, quick anecdote first. I was gutted today because I heard that James O'Brien, who's on a radio show here in the UK on a radio station called LBC. He does a mystery hour, and one of the questions on mystery hour today was, how do you set a Sudoku so that it's solvable? And when I heard this, some of you tweeted this to me, thank you for that, I rang into the radio show all ready to give, what I thought would be a really interesting answer, only to find out that some software engineer who worked on an oil rig had already rang in with an answer that had been accepted. So they never got to find out about cracking the cryptic or anything. It was most disappointing. Anyway, that's completely by the by, and I'm buying time to try and understand how to start Codex Puzzle because I do not know how to do it. I mean, obviously there's this huge arrangement of 2-cell arrows in those cells which look like there's sort of some sort of theme, don't they? Let's think about what the minimum total is for these circles, because those 5 cells there have to sum to a minimum of 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5. So, you know, if we do something like this, that's going to add to 15. Now we could do the same in this row, and that will give us another 15. So that's telling us that the circles here must sum to at least 30. No, hang on, I can do better than that. Let's not do it by row, let's do it by box. If we do it by box, we get a different answer, because those 6 cells all have to be different. So that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 as a minimum. That's 21. And 4 there would give us, well, let's do 1, 2, 3 and 4. You can see I can't quite do it, but something like that would give us 10. So that's it's offending me. Hang on. It's still offending me. That's better. Now it works. So you can see here the minimum value is 21 plus 10, which is 31. So now we've got rid of a degree of freedom. What's the maximum we can put into those 5 circles? 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 is 35. So we are looking to make these arrows sum to something between 31 and 35 inclusive. Now, what does that mean? So that means right, so let's think about the secret. What is the secret of all Sudoku? I was very amused to watch Mark's video last night when Trevor Tao took the secret and sort of turned it up to 11 by working out the product of the digits 1 to 9. But the sum of the digits 1 to 9, which must of course appear in any row, any column or any box of a Sudoku, is 45. That's what you get when you sum the numbers 1 to 9. So if those cells are summing to something between 31 and 35, these cells are summing to 14, 13, 12, 11 or 10. And 3 of them are on an arrow. Well, okay, there's a very basic bit of logic that we often do at the start of arrow Sudoku, which is to note that a 3-cell arrow, where all of the digits on the arrow must be different, such as this little specimen here, must add up to at least 6. Because if we put 1 plus 2 plus 3 on the arrow, that sums to 6 already. So this cell is at least a 6. There we go. At least we've pencil marked a cell. So, what does this mean? I'm not sure. I'm actually wondering about this arrow. Although it's a very short stubby arrow, and normally short stubby arrows are irrelevant until very late stages of arrow Sudoku, these have a maximum value of 14. It's not actually that good. You can't put a 9 in this string of digits, but you could even put an 8. If you put an 8 and 1, 2, 3 there, it would work. So this digit here is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8. No, I'm not pencil marking it. I'm wondering if it can be a low digit though. If it is a really low digit, aren't I going to blow up this total? I'm thinking if this is a 1 in this square, then the minimum value for those row squares becomes 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, which add up to 20. And 20, oh, it works, bother. 20, yeah, if those add up to 20 as a minimum and those add up to 15 as a minimum, that still gives 35, which is okay, because we can make those add up to 35, so we can't rule out a 1 here. Although, if that is a 1, those squares have to be a 2, 3, 4 triple, because they couldn't be anything else and make this a single-digit total. So if that's a 1, that's a 9, and this is... Oh, it sort of forces it, I see. So if this is a 1, we are forced, both from a point of view of these arrows, but also from the point of view of this arrow, to use 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 in these circles, because that's going to be forced to be 2, 3 and 4 by this arrow. all of which means I can't do anything with that. Bother. Wow. What are we meant to do then? I don't think it's going to be these, is it? I'm sort of just wondering whether or not I'm missing a trick here in the bottom, well, at the bottom of the grid. So these 6 cells are giving rise to these 3 arrows. Right, okay, maybe that's the way to think about it. These 3 circles here have to sum to at least 21, because again, 6 cells in the same box, that's 6 different digits. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 is 21. So these are 21, but they can't be higher than 24 because that would be 7, 8, and 9. So these squares are 21, 22, 23, or 24. Now, does that mean we can't? I'm just thinking, what does that mean we have to have in these 6 cells if these cannot be greater than 24? Yeah, okay, so you can see if you miss out a 1 from these squares, they'd be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, which is 27, which is too much. So there must be a 1 in those squares, and there must be a 2, and there must be a 3, and there must be a 3 because 1 plus 2 plus 4, 5, 6, and 7 is, unless I'm doing my maths wrong, 25. It is 25. So you have to have a 1, 2, and a 3 on these arrows. No, I'm not seeing anything as a result of that. I mean, I can see I can't put the 1 and the 2 on the same arrow, because if I did that, for example, this square would add up to 3, and that doesn't work for these 2 squares, which would then have to add up to at least 18, and they'd have to be double 9, and that doesn't work. So the 1s, 2s, and 3s have to be, well, certainly the 1 and 2 have to be kept apart on different arrows. And you can never put a 9, this is a very minor deduction, you can never put a 9 on a 2-cell arrow because you'll create a double-digit total. So there's a 9 down here. I'm doing dreadfully badly here. This is dreadful. I am not getting to grips with this at all. These arrows are the same as these arrows, aren't they? In the sense that they are subject to the same restriction. These have to add up to at least 21. But cannot add up to more than 24, so they need 1, 2, and 3 on them. 9 must be in one of those squares. Ah, okay. You can't put 9 on a 2-cell arrow, so 9 is in one of those squares, which means 9 is not here. Here we go. Now we've got a 1 on this arrow, because it's got to be a 6, 7, or 8 arrow, and any triple adding up to 6, 7, or 8 has got to involve a 1. 6 is 1, 2, 3, 7 is 1, 2, 4, 8 is 1, 2, 5, or 1, 3, 4. And do not worry, I'm not doing anything clever there. I've just seen those totals so often before that I know them. 9 is in one of those 4 squares. What's this doing then? It's a really minor deduction, isn't it, knowing that there's a 9 in this domino and that this is not a 9 giving me a 1 here. I mean, if you look at this row, I would have guessed there was a 1 there already. I'm wondering whether the fact that there's a 1, 2, 3 on these arrows, let me just think about this for a second. I'm wondering if I can force 1s, 2s, and 3s onto these arrows, or at least some of those digits. These are 21 minimum. 4, 5, 6, 6. Ah, okay. Here is a small deduction. It's not enough to only have one of the digits 1, 2 and 3 in this 2 by 2, because if you say there's only a 1 in here and then there wasn't a 2 or a 3, then the other 3 digits along with the 1 would be a minimum of 4, 5 and 6. Now 4, 5 and 6 add to 15, plus the 1 is 16, so these 4 cells would have a minimum value of 16. 16 plus at least 21 is 37, which is too high for those squares. So there must be at least a second digit from 1, 2 and 3 in this total, and I'm wondering if that means something for there. If you had 1, 2 and 3 in here, this would have to be a 1, 2, 3 triple, which is that, maybe it is possible. Maybe that can be a 3 with a 1, 2 beneath it. Oh, bobbins. Hang on a second. So if this has got 2, 4, 5. Yeah, so I think all I'm concluding here, because once you get 2 of the digits 1, 2 and 3 into this quadruple, you're fine regarding the total. I mean, if I go 1, 2, 4, 5, that's 12, plus a minimum of 21, that's 33, so that's absolutely fine. I just have to keep this down to 35 or lower. So, but I do know there has to be another digit. In fact, I don't even know there's a 1 in there, do I? Or maybe I do. If there's no 1 in here, let's make this 2, 3, 4, 5, which is 14. Oh, that works. Because that's 14 and 21 is 35 again. So there doesn't even have to be a 1 in there. Okay. But there does have to be at least 2 of the digits 1, 2 and 3. So at least 2 of the digits 1, 2 and 3 have to be down here. So maybe a better question to ask is how many repeated digits there are in this region and in this region. Yeah, okay, because what you can't have is 4 repeated digits. This might be interesting. Let's just think about this. Let's make those orange and these yellow for a change. We'll have oranges and lemons today. Now, what we can't have is the 4 orange digits appearing in the yellows, because if we do, those 4 digits would then have to appear in those 3 cells in row 6, and that's impossible. So there's either 2 repeated digits, or there's 3 repeated digits in the oranges and the yellows, oranges and the lemons. And now, if there's 2 repeated digits, let's just think about this. So if you had a 1 and a 2 here and a 1 and a 2 here, these dominoes would each sum to 3. So these 4 squares would sum to 6. And then we're saying no other repeated digits. So the other digits would be, so we've got 6 at the moment. The other digits would be, let's actually put them in. Oh no, I didn't want to do that. We'll put 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. So we've got 26 there, 33. Oh, it's way over. It's actually way over. Because 33 plus another 6 is 39. That doesn't work. You can't make those add up to 39. This is really interesting. So even if you pick the 2 lowest digits you can, and say there are a common 1 and a common 2, so there's a 1 and a 2 in orange and a 1 and a 2 in yellow, you cannot make the total work. That's fascinating. So now we know that there is these 3 digits here appear in orange and in yellow. So if they were 1, 2 and 3, So let's imagine that's a 1, 2, 3 triple, that's a 1, 2, 3 triple, that's going to be 6 here and another 6 there. So that's 12 plus 4, 5, 6 and 7, which is 22. So that's 34. So there is 1 degree of freedom. That feels incredibly important. There is 1 degree of freedom. So either there's 1, 2, 3 here and 1, 2, 3 here, or presumably there's 1, 2, 4 here and 1, 2, 4 here. Anything else will break, and let's convince ourselves of that. If we try and repeat 1, 3, 4, I think we're going to be over the total. So 1, 3, 4 is 8, 16, we can make that 2, 5, 6, 7 again, 18, 20. And what have we got there? We've got 16. That's 36. It is just too many. Just too many. So we are. I'm making progress, albeit slowly. So we've either got 1, 2, 3 here repeated here, or we've got 1, 2, 4 here repeated here, which means that the digits that are appearing in these cells in row 6 are definitely 1 and 2, and either 3 or 4. But they're definitely 1 and 2. And what we can't do is put 1 or 2 in the circle of a 2-cell arrow. That simply is nonsense, because you can't put double 1 on the arrow. So there is a 1 on this arrow now. That means there's no 1 here, apart from me. But I mean, in terms of the Sudoku grid, this square definitely can't be a 1. Because there's definitely got to be a 1 on this arrow, because it's either a 1-3 pair or it's a 1-2 pair. These two squares now have to be a 1-2 pair, because we know 1 and 2 have to be here, because they're in both of those colours. And now I suddenly feel like I've done better now. So why have I done better? What has this done? What has this done for me? I haven't got a clue. I have not got a clue. Oh, come on. So, I suppose 1 then. It looks like there has to be a 1 in those 6 cells. There has to be a 1 in these 2 cells. So there must be a 1 down there. And then whatever the other digit is, that's quite interesting. If this has got a 2 on it, the 2 will match up and there'll be a 2 down here. If this has got a 3 on it, the 3 will match up and there will be a 3 down there. So that's a little bit interesting. So we know that there's a 1 and a 2 here, and we know there's either a 3 or a 4, or indeed both. But if there was both, there couldn't be a 4 here, because that would give us 4 repeats, which we can't have. Sorry, I'm now getting stuck, I think. So we now almost know the composition of the oranges and the lemons, don't we? We know we've got 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 4 doubled. Then we've got a 3 or a 4, depending on what's been doubled. Then we've got a 5, 6 or a 7. That's enough digits, yes. So there's no 8s and no 9s. Right, okay. So there's no 8s and no 9s in the oranges and the lemons. That is in and of itself fascinating, because let me ask a facetious question. How many 8s and 9s are there going to be in that row of the Sudoku? The answer is there's going to be 1 8 and 1 9, assuming we do it correctly. How many 8s and 9s are there in that row of the Sudoku? There will be 1 8 and 1 9. Here is another facetious question. How many 8s and 9s can I put in those 6 cells? 1 8 and 1 9 maximum. So the only way I can get 2 8s and 2 9s into those 4 squares is, yep, you've guessed it, that is an 8-9 pair, which means that's not an 8. Whoopsie, that's not an 8. So now I know there's a 2 on my arrow up here. So this is 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 4. This is never 1. Which does that matter? Maybe, I'm not sure. Actually, in this column now... Oh. Yes. Where does 1 go in column 4? There's a good question. 1 in box 5 is in orange. So it's not there. You can't put 1 in any of those. You can't put 1 here because it's going to reappear here or re-emerge, and therefore it'll clash in box 4. And you can't put 1 here because it will clash with the arrow, which needs a 1 on it. So 1 is not in those 6 cells, which means 1 is in one of those 3 squares, but simultaneously it needs to be in one of those 3 squares. Only one cell does both of those jobs, so we get a 1 here. Now let's think about 2, I guess. Yes, oh lovely. Yeah, you can't put 2 in those squares. For exactly the same reason as you couldn't put 1 in those squares. It's subject to exactly the same constraint. So 2 is on the arrow here. And that's... Oh, this is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful, because now 2 is on this arrow, and 2 is definitely in this 6-cell sequence over on the right. So again, the facetious question is how many 2s are there in row 7 and row 8? Well, there's 1 in row 7, there's 1 in row 8. That's 2 2s. We know one of those 2s is there, the second is there, so there's no more 2s. We can't put 2s on this arrow. If you can't put 2s on this arrow, this has become a 4. And that, oh, it's our second digit, but it still gives me pride. Ooh, that's our third digit. This square has to be a 2, I think, because it can't be a 1, 3 or a 4. That's good. Still don't know what that is, but it is good. 6 or 7. 4, 1, 3. So, okay. Hang on. Let's come back to the logic we did earlier. Oh, Alexa. Alexa wants to talk to us.
Connect to your Wi-Fi network. You can find setup instructions in the help section of your Alexa.
I do not know why she talks to me sometimes, but she does. Now, this is a 4. That means 4 is in orange, and 4 must be in yellow. Which means... What does that mean? That means these squares... Has that taken our degree of freedom? It has, hasn't it? It has, because 1, 2, 3 was the minimum. Now we know 1, 2, 4 is the duplicated value. 1, 2, 4 is 7. Let's do this slowly and just double check. So we've got 1, 2, 4 we know must appear in orange. 1, 2, 4 must appear in lemon. We know we've got a 3 over here, so that's used a 3. We can't duplicate the 3, or the 3 will have to appear there as well. So the rest of the digits are 5, 6 and 7, which is 18, 21, 35. That's it. Perfect. Okay, so we have done it now. These squares are 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9 in some order, which means these squares are 1, 2, 3 and 4 in some order. Now that means that's a 3 or a 4, which means that's a 3 or a 4, and this can't be a 4 because there's a 4 here. So this is a 3, this is a 3. Get rid of the 3 here. This becomes a 7 out of nowhere. Get rid of the 1 pencil marked in the corner, and the 2, which I've just introduced by mistake. And Okay, that feels like it's important somehow. What does that mean? We can't put 3 in here. We know 3 is not in orange because it is definitely in yellow. So 3 in this box is in one of those squares. 3 cannot be in this circle because we know those 3 circles sum to at least 21. So that would force double 9 in here. So we get the 3 in box 5. 3. Oh, we get the 3 in box 8. Look. Where does the 3 go? We've got 3s here and 3s here. So 3s cannot make more appearances in those cells. So 3 is locked into exactly that cell. In the yellows here, we know there is no digit higher than a 7 because we've worked out approximately the composition of the oranges and the lemons. We don't know how they're distributed quite, but we do know that they contain 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s and 7s, not 8s and 9s. So there's definitely an 8 in these squares, which we could actually have seen just using this 8 here, look, bobbins. So, what do we do now? That's the question I think we're faced with. Oh, it is possible there's a 7 in orange. I was wondering if I could use this 7 to my advantage, but I'm not sure I can. We've actually got a lot done in column 4, though. We need 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5, and 6. So this square can't be a 2 because it sees 2. And it can't be a 4 because it sees 4. And it can't be a 5 because then it would require 3 on its arrow, and it can't be 3. That square is a 6, which means this arrow is a 2, 4 arrow. So that means that's shunted 6 up into the lemons. And this square is a 5 by the power of little old Sudoku, which mirrors through there, look. Puts a bit of pressure on the odd digit, which now can't be 1 or 5, so that's 3, 7 or 9. 5 has to appear in one of those squares in box 3. Okay, that felt like quite good progress suddenly. But is it? The answer is I don't know. What have we got in row 6 now? Look, we need to place 5s, 7s, 8s and 9s into these squares, and this can't be 8 or 9. So this is 5 or 7. Which means this arrow here, it's not actually that interesting, is it? 5 or 7 looks very possible, especially as I've got so many low digits to choose from. Don't think this is particularly restricted, so I don't think this is particularly restricted. What am I missing? Let's think. 2. 2, look, is locked into those sets of cells. So 2 makes an appearance in one of these squares in box 7. Those are the same digit. Oh, hang on. These are the same digit. Now, what do we know by the power of Sudoku in relation to those 2 squares then? Well, the answer is, of course, they have to appear in one of those 3 squares, because whatever goes in both of those squares will be in one of those squares. So these squares are 1, 2, or 4. Which does nothing. I don't believe it. Okay, I thought I was onto something then. Do we get a problem? If this is a 5, those squares are 1, 2, 4, and 7, which add up to 14, which means those 2 squares would have to be 6 and 8 because they couldn't be 5 and 9, which actually looks perfect, doesn't it? If this is a 7, these have to add up to 12, 1, 2, 4, 5. These have to add up to 12, therefore. There you go. Right, okay, this cannot be a 7. Let me show you why. if this is 7, these add up to 12, so these add up to 12. 3, 9 is impossible. 4, 8 is impossible because the 4 is there. And 5, 7 is impossible. So this would be absolutely impossible. Therefore, that's a 5. Orange squares are now 1, 2, 4, and 7 for sure, which is almost very interesting. These two squares have to add up to 14, and they are 6 and 8 because they can't be 5 and 9. So there's something going on with these dominoes now. Whichever one of these is 6, there's only going to be one way to make 6. It's going to be 2, 4. And then whichever one is 8 will have to go with 1, 7. 6, 8 here. So these squares are now 5, 7, and 9. This is a 5 arrow. So those squares now have got to be 1, 2, 3, and 4 because we obviously can't put a higher digit. So there's almost something going on here as well. So these triples are interesting, but probably not interesting enough. 5 comes out of those squares, look. So we've just got 7s, 8s, and 9s here. There's a little trick we can do with this triple. Is it possible that there is no 9 in these squares? Well, the answer is no, because if this is a 5, 7, 8 triple, it would only add up to 20. But we know the digits it's got to, on its arrows, add up to at least 21. So there's definitely a 9 in this domino. Therefore, there is no 9 in this square. Which I don't think it does anything. I don't believe it. Oh, good grief. What am I missing now? This is really difficult, actually, this puzzle, isn't it? It's not easy. There's got to be a 9 in one of those 3 squares. I can see that from box 2. Oh, I know what I could do, you know. This can't be a 5. If that's a 5, I've broken column 7. I've got too many low digits because these 2 digits would have to be selected from 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there would be 5 digits in the column that have to be 1, 2, 3, and 4, which is impossible. So that's not 5, which might be interesting. Almost interesting. So does there have to be a low digit on here, a 1, 2, 3, or 4? There does, doesn't there? So there is a virtual 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, that's it. Oh, no, it's not. You can still have 1, 6 here or something like that. I was wondering whether I could use the fact there's a virtual quadruple, or virtual, yeah, it's a virtual quadruple on 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s in this column to my advantage, but unfortunately I don't think that I can. So, I've got to think again. How shall we do this thinking thing, which we need to do? I don't know. Oh dear. Sevens, look, have to be in one of those 3 squares. And do we know more about what's got to be on these arrows now? Maybe that's the point. I know that these arrows... Yeah, actually that is interesting, because I think originally when I calculated the contents of these arrows, I was assuming they could add up to 24, which they can't now. The maximum value of the arrows now is 22. So maybe we can conclude... So originally we knew they had a 1, 2 and a 3 on them. If they don't have a 4 on them, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. No, that's too many. Okay, so now we know there's definitely a 4 in here. Ah, yes, look. Now there is a 4 on this arrow. That goes with this 4. That's the 2 4s that we need in rows 7 and 8. So there's no more 4s in those squares. There's no 4 here. So this is now a 2 4 pair. Does nothing. Okay, let's try 5 over here. If we've got 5 on, let's try and leave 5 off the arrows. If we leave 5 off the arrows, we can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, which is 23. 23 is too many. This is suddenly amazing. I think we've got a 5 on this domino, because now I know there's a 5 in this set of arrows. It doesn't seem to be able to be on a 5 arrow because you can't accompany it with a 0. So there is a 5 in one of those squares, and there's a 5 in one of these squares. So where does the 5 go in column 7? Not there, not there, not here. So it must be on this arrow. In fact, look, so this arrow, once we know it's got 5 on it, and it's adding to 7 or 9, that's either 2 5 or 4 5. And now, forget about the fact I could have had a virtual 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple. I've now actually got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quintuple. And this is gorgeous. Where does the 3 go in my quintuple? It's not there and it's not there, so it must be here. And it's on a 5 arrow, so that's a 2, 3. And that means that's not got 4 on it. That's not got 2 on it. Oh, lovely. And now I've got a 4 5 pair here, so this has become a 9. And that's become a 1 by the power of elimination of 2s and 4s. That means that's a 1. Those are not 9 anymore. This is absolutely awesome, as always from Codec. It's just so intricate. 9 now is forced in this box to be here. 9 is forced in box 9 to be here. These squares, there's a whole mishmash of things that includes 1s, 4s and 5s apparently. Okay, so can we go further? Maybe 5 has to be in one of those 2 squares in row 9. I feel like that's a big breakthrough, but maybe it's not. Those squares have to be a 2, 4, 9 triple, actually. Let's do that. It doesn't seem to do anything. What have we not actually used? We've not used that. We've not used this arrow. This square now sees 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Look, that square. So that's got to be 6, 7 or 8. It can't be 9 because it's on an arrow, which means that square's got to be 7, 8 or 9, which is almost interesting. Oh, sorry. Sorry if I'm missing something simple here. This column needs 6, 7s and 8s on it, doesn't it? So 6, 7s and 8s. That square can't be a 7. That means there's going to be whatever this digit is appears in one of those 2 squares. That digit seems to be able to be 6, 7 or 8. These squares can't have 4 on them anymore. Oh, okay, so whichever one of these is 5 has got 2, 3 on its arrow. Whichever one of it is 7 has 1, 6 on its arrow. Good lord. And there's a 2, 3 here. So whichever one of these dominoes is 2, 3, it's going to force a 2, 3 domino up there. I'm still not sure if that's enough to crack the puzzle open. We don't know, I think, whether this arrow or the arrows down here have 6s or 7s on them. or at least we may know, but somebody may know, but I don't think that person, unfortunately, is me. How can we get a grip on that? Is there a way of doing that? There probably is. I just don't know if I know what it is. 3 can't go in those squares, so 3 is definitely in one of those 2 squares. So that means... Oh, does that mean... Yeah, we know that 3 is accompanying 2, don't we? So we know that 2 is not down there. So 2 has moved up here, which means 2 is not here. 2 is in one of these 2 squares. If 2 is in one of those 2 squares, 2 is going with 4 to make these dominoes work. So the 4 moves out of there, and the 4 moves up here, and that gives us a 4 and a 5. Good grief. 5 is then placed here, look. Which means 5 is only in one position in the bottom row. I think before we limited it to those 2 positions. 5 is now in this domino in box 7. This square and this square are from 6, 7 and 8. So we've almost got some stuff going on with 6, 7s and 8s perhaps now. Although it doesn't still seem to be resolved. 1 is ruled out of those. Maybe that's going to be... Oh, that's it. Look. Once I got these 1s, I could have fixed the fact... Once you know there's a 1 in this domino, you know it goes with 7. So this was fixed. Ah, sorry. I didn't know that, and therefore it eluded me. Although maybe it's not quite as revealing as I thought it might be. That's now a 1-7 pair. This now is a 6, which means this is an 8. Which means there's a 6 in this domino and an 8 in this domino. And also, look, there's a 7 in this domino. So this is a 7-8 pair, and this is a 6-9 pair. That gives us a 9 at the top of the grid. This 9 locks a 9 into, locks a 9 into one of 2 positions, takes it out of the odd digit. And has this broken the puzzle open for us? I don't know, but maybe. Let's see. Take the 8s out of those pencil marks, they're annoying me. Does this reveal what we have to put into those squares? I can't quite see it. It may do, I'm just not spotting how it does it. Really not. This is getting to the point now where I'm mildly concerned I've made a mistake in the puzzle, and that there is a much more efficient way to do this. 6, 7s, 8s and 9s. I'm just not seeing it. It's infuriating. Come on, Simon. What are you missing? We know... Yeah, you can't have 8 on these arrows, so 8's definitely at the bottom of the grid. That means that square is not 8, it's 6 or 7. So 8 is definitely in those squares, as is 9. Still doesn't do it, I don't think. I think there must be a way of resolving these arrows somehow. So if this is 7, it couldn't be 2, 5 or 3, 4. It would have to be 1, 6, which would force this to be 1, 6 and this to be a 6, and that looks absolutely fine to me. If this is 8, this has to be 1, 7. This is 8, this has to be 1, 7. Oh, I see. Is it the fact you can't put a 7 in here? Is that the point? Oh yeah, it's something to do, there's something going on here with 7s. I still haven't quite got my head around it, but it feels like this cannot be an 8. So if this is 8, yeah, if this is 8, you have to put a 7 in one of those squares, which you can't do. What is the simple way of explaining that? That's the question I'm asking. I'm just not... No, I'm not quite seeing a simple way of explaining that, I have to say. 8 forces 1, 7. Which forces 7 here, which forces a 7 into those squares, but this has just become an 8 to do it, so it's broken. Another way of seeing that is seeing that if this is 8, this is 7, you have to put a 7 here, whereas you also need it on the arrow. Yeah, so whichever way you cut it, this has to be 7, and this is probably the trick we needed. Ah, no, it's not. It's not. There was a much easier trick. You know what the easier trick is? The easier trick is to notice this square is a 9. So how does that get made up? The answer is it can't be 1, 8. Once you lock the 8 into the bottom, because 8 can't be on the arrow, this can't be 1, 8, 2, 7 or 3, 6. So that this was always a 4, 5 arrow. And once that's a 4, 5 arrow, maybe it's still... Well, now you definitely know there's a 1 on this arrow. And it's either 1, 6 or 1, 7. But this 4, 5 is fixing this as being a 5, this as being a 7. Now you know that that has to be a 2, 3 pair. This has to be a 1, 6 pair. Which means that... I'm still reluctant to use this bit of logic, but I think I'm probably going to have to now, aren't I? Oh no, this 7's giving me an 8 here, and that's giving me a 7, which is limiting this to 1, 6. The only place 7 can go in the bottom row is there now. There you go, and that gets us through it. So yeah, I think there were a few different ways of doing it. Whether you use the 9 or whether you use the 7, you could have got through it, but I failed to do either of those things with any sort of aplomb, and for that you have my apologies. So that's 4, 8 there, that's 2, 3 there. And let's see if we can actually finish off the puzzle now. We can go... What can we go? Have we actually... We've got an enormous amount of real estate filled in the bottom rows. This 3 has suddenly become powerful. Look, with this 2, 3 pair there. So that's a 3, that's a 2. That's done nothing. This really has done almost nothing. I have a feeling that what we must have to do... Ah, that's a 6, look, because of this 7. I was going to say, I have a feeling what we're going to have to do, 6 in that box has to be there, is use either this or the odd digit, because these so far have really not done themselves justice. This 6, is that doing anything? If it is, it's not... Well, it's giving me a 6 there. Ah, there you go. Yes, it is. 6, 1, 1, 7 go into the grid. So now this square has to be 8 or 9 by Sudoku. This has to be 7, 8 or 9. So there's definitely a 7 in one of those two squares. This 6 is removing the ability of this square to... Oh, I see what's happening. This 6 is removing the ability of this to be a 6, which means, of course, that that square cannot be a 7. That gives us an 8, 9 pair in this box, which means that this square must be a 7. This is an 8, that becomes a 9, 8, 8, 9. This 8 is doing damage down at the bottom. This column needs a 9 in it, and it hasn't got one, so that's got to go here. That's going to give me some more digits down at the bottom. It is, in fact, giving me lots of digits. Lots and lots of digits. Wow. Well done. And that gives me a 7 here, which means that's a 7, which now we get the final disambiguation with this, look. That's now a 3. 3, 2, 2, 4, 4, 8. I've got to put an 8 in one of those. It's got to go that way round. And oh no, I've got deadly pattern. No, I haven't, because of the 9 here. So that's a 1, 1, 4, 4, 2, 2, check. Yay. That's a very clever puzzle indeed. Not that easy, I would protest, although I made a meal of it, I think. I think the critical idea at the start is to get your head around the fact that there needs to be repeated digits on these in the oranges and the lemons. And once you've done that, you can work out something quite useful. Well, you can work out basically that the oranges and lemons have 1 degree of freedom, which is not at all apparent at the start. And then there's just a whole lot of intricate weirdnesses going on with 1s, 2s and 3s, and where you can lock them in rows and columns by forcing them onto arrows. And that's all absolutely beautiful. And then at the end, I think there was something going on with 5s that I got. What was the thing I got with 5s? I got this as a 5. I knew there was a 5 in one of those cells. Oh yeah, that was it. You can prove this wasn't a 5 because it would have put too many low digits in this column. Once we knew that wasn't a 5, and we knew one of those was a 5, that meant something, but I can't remember what it was. It was very clever, but in the end, I think it then came down to working out that this 9 arrow could only be 4, 5, and that really seemed to help. But yeah, going to be interested in the comments. I mean, I know some of you will have shouted at me for not seeing this 9-7 resolution more quickly. But maybe there were other things that I could have done that would have made the solve a bit more efficient. But this is the problem. We solve these live, and sometimes we are slower than you guys would be. Sometimes we miss the obvious because it's staring us in the face and we don't see it. We don't intend to do these things, but it does sometimes happen. We hope you still enjoy the videos, and yeah, do drop us a comment. We enjoy them, especially if they are kind. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.